Hello and welcome to the Lucidess podcast, where I explore everything because I believe everything is connected to everything else. And I also believe in the infinite, unbounded potential within each of us. Today, I want to share a very clear example of parts work. Richard Swartz, I believe he has a PhD. He's the creator of what's currently called parts work, which is interesting because I remember, I would say at least 30 years ago, before parts work was created, I was intuitively doing parts work. And I remember I was working with a therapist. She was asking me questions, and I started talking about the different parts of myself, and I would refer to me as we. And I would mention these different parts. They didn't have names, but I could tell they had different personalities, so to speak. And I realized that the therapist was becoming alarmed and was trying to ask me questions to see if I was schizophrenic. And so I tried to tell her, I'm not schizophrenic. There's just one conscious me in here, but there are many we's in here too, and they each play a role. And I could tell she was not super sold on the idea of this parts work, which I think is hilarious that 30 years ago someone was concerned I was schizophrenic. And now it's very common today. We talk about parts work and our different, different characters that play a role inside of us. Anyway, I didn't go see that therapist much more after that. I was like, well, okay, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, we're not going to get far. Okay, so today, now that we all talk about parts work as though it's normal, we talk about things, that's great. I wanted to offer a very specific example, and it wasn't until afterwards when I was talking to my therapist and sharing the story with her, and she said, oh, that's like the perfect example of parts work. And I thought, oh, it is. It just happened organically and naturally, and so I wanted to share it because I think the specific examples help me understand how to apply sort of principles in my life. How do you actually take something from principle, an idea, a construct, and then implement or employ it or activate it? Okay, so I can't remember if I told you guys, but we had this huge rainstorm here, I don't know, like a month ago. It was like we hadn't had that much rain in 120 years. And a few weeks before that, we'd had some rain, and I remember thinking, I think I have a leak, which was odd because the roof where I'm at had just been replaced 2 or 3 months ago. So I was like, there's no way I could have a leak because there's a brand new roof, right? The brand new roof would have taken care of that. No, the brand new roof caused some problem. So I have this huge, I literally had a freaking waterfall in my house, just streaming out of the ceiling. It was crazy. Anyway, so it was like 9 days and 3 huge storms. Water and they were on the roof again and again, and then it was the gutters, and then it was the this, and then it was the this, and then it was the this, and it was, anyway, it literally took them, we finally had men on the roof with buckets of water, pouring buckets of water in different parts of the roof at these different junctures. There's a lot going on the roof, so interestingly, they found a few things it could be, ended up fixing them all just in case. Okay, now it's done. Okay, we finally figured out the roof issue. And then now it's time to fix it. So, and I have to say, I contacted my insurance, told them what was going on, and they said, oh yeah, actually because of such and such, we don't cover any damage inside the house. And I was just like, so frustrating, insurance companies. I do not know why we have insurance. Seriously, we have got to change that. Okay, so then because the roofing company, because it took so long and there was so much damage repeatedly, and they knew that my insurance wasn't going to cover it, they said, okay, we're going to cover it. We're going to get this fixed for you inside. And I was so appreciative. I said, thank you so much. Just thank you. So I start working with them. We get the first guys in there, and what would happen is I would let them in, and then I would go to work, and the roofing guys that would bring the subcontractors in, they'd say, okay, we'll be here when they leave, and we'll lock up, go out through the garage. I was like, great. That sounds great. So we do that with the demo guys, and then we do that with the sheetrock guys, and then it gets to the paint time for the painter. So, they come early in the morning. I let him in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to head out. And he's like, okay, great. Like, no worries. The painter's going to do the primer, and then he'll go get the proper color, and then he'll come back. And I was like, well, okay, but I don't want the house open, or, I kind of just vaguely said something. And he goes, oh, no, don't worry. The painter's going to be here. Don't worry. And I was thinking, okay, I kind of just got 2 different messages from you, but I'm in a hurry. You're doing me a favor. I'll just let it go. So I go to work. And then I get a call around noon. It's like, oh, hey, actually, the painter can't get the paint till tomorrow, so we're going to be there tomorrow. I said, great. So I get home in the evening, and my house is open. It hadn't been locked up, meaning the painter had left, but he didn't know the drill to lock up, and then the main roofing guys had not gone and locked up. I walk in the house and immediately have a slew of voices in my head. A lot's going on. And I kind of checked in. I was like, okay, the one that's talking to me loudest right now is very upset and scared. Someone could be in the house, and I'll just tell you honestly what it was. This voice is like, somebody could be in the house, and while we're asleep, they're going to come into the bedroom, and they're going to hurt us in some number of ways. And I'm like, okay, you are loudest. We're going to take care of this. So I lock up the house. And then I slowly, interestingly enough, I did not arm myself in any way. I did not, I guess part of me also did not really worry someone was in the house, but I hadn't thought about that till now. I slowly go through the whole house. I go through every closet. I'm looking under beds. I'm looking in any space where a human being could be hiding. I did not go in the attic. It's too hard to get up there. Anyway, the person would have needed to be very tall and very agile and blah, 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 because I don't have a ladder. So I go through the whole house, and I check everywhere that could possibly be a person. There's not a person. So then I sit down, and the voice is still agitated. I'm like, okay, what do you need now? And it's like, are you sure you checked, this one closet? And I was like, I'm pretty sure we did. We'll go look again. Okay, so... And then that one, then I'm like, okay, when you show up tonight, if you wake me up while I'm asleep, we're going to walk through this scenario. We're going to walk through this scenario in our head. We have checked everywhere in the house. It would kind of be a miracle at this point if there was someone in the house. And it was like, okay. So then the next one said, hey, and it was a different one, not the same one. A different one said, hey, we're not okay with the house being open and empty. I said, noted. Let's address that right now. So I text the roofing guys, and I said, hey, I am not okay with my house being open and empty. If I'm going to let someone in, you need to be here to lock up. And, somebody needs to be here if the house is open. I'm not okay with that. And then right before I sent it, another voice stepped up and said, hey, we're really grateful that they are taking care of this. They didn't have to. So we just want to let them know we're really grateful. And so before I sent the text, I said, Anne, just want to say thanks. I really appreciate all that you're doing. And then I checked in. Is there anybody else? I was like, no, everybody's good. Sent the text. So a few texts went back and forth about it. He was like, oh, I'm sorry, da-da-da-da-da. And, I just reiterated again, like, hey, he's like, oh, do we need to, schedule on a weekend when you're home? And I was like, no, I'm fine as long as my house is not open and empty. There needs to be someone here, or it needs to be locked. And then again I said, and then the other voice immediately said, don't forget to be grateful, because we are very grateful. And I said, and I really appreciate you coordinating all of this. Left it at that. So that night I went to sleep fully prepared for some voice to wake me up in the middle of the night and be alarmed or upset or da-da-da-da. Oddly enough, nobody did. I seem to have addressed all their issues during that time, and everybody slept through the night. So as I was talking to my therapist about it, I hadn't realized what I was doing. I just knew that I needed to address myself, or I would not be okay. And so this was me addressing all the parts of me. And I did afterwards, I thought, I think it was beautiful that first I took care of the one that was so scared. Then I took care of the one who did not feel like boundaries were being respected, and kind of like common sense boundaries. And we were going to make that clear and ask for what we needed. And then I really loved that another one was like, we truly are so grateful that they're helping us with this, and they have done a great job. And so making space and finding a way to communicate and address all of their needs, really, and I feel like I did it just brilliantly. I was just like, oh, so wonderful. Okay, so fast forward like a day or two. I can't remember how many days. I'm at work, and there's an issue at work that we have not, it's like been a year, seriously, to get this thing done. And I've asked repeatedly, like, hey, we need to get this done. We need to get this done. And I haven't been given sort of the reins to do it. It's like, always seems like this weird control issue from the top. Like, no, you can't just do this. Like, it has to be done. And I've been told, admin is going to do it, and they don't do it. I'm just like beyond frustrated. I'm just like, I can't take this anymore. So there happens to be, we're having a staff meeting, we're all on Zoom or whatever. And it comes up again, and one of the top admin, she laughs like right after I finish saying something. And I immediately was triggered, and I was like, she's dismissing me, she's condescending. I was just like, I'm so upset. I'm so emotionally triggered. Okay, this is exactly like what happened with the roofing, only I did not do it the same way. What I did is, we got off the call, I took that one that had reacted emotionally and needed some attention, and I put it into the issue and the frustration of things not being done, and sent out some emails to people and was like, hey, this, very, very just not helpful, not constructive, we'll leave it at that. And but I was honest to this one woman. I was like, hey, I did not appreciate, the way you laughed after I was sharing that. Like, it felt dismissive and condescending. I really, da-da-da. So she emails, we have some emails, and she's like, I'm so sorry. Like, it wasn't that at all. I was honestly laughing because you were so firm and sure about your answer. Like, it was just sharp, and like, you just knew it. And she said, I didn't mean to. I shouldn't have. Like, it literally meant nothing on my end. It was just like a laugh. And it did feel like a genuine response from her. So then I got to sit and look at the fact that I had not addressed my own needs of that emotional one who felt dismissed and condescended. I had not addressed their needs before I tried to communicate what was actually the issue. So instead, it was very convoluted. So the next day, myself and two of the owners, the admins, we had just a really brief call, and they just said, hey, we just want to check in and make sure everything's okay. And I said, actually, and I had asked for it at that point. I'm like, hey, can we please have a call about this? So I just said, hey, I want you to know, like, yes, I am frustrated about this issue. Brought it up before. We all know that. I said, at the same time, I had an emotional reaction, to the laugh. To me, it meant something different. And instead of addressing that and just calling and saying, hey, what was that laugh all about? This is how it felt. Can we please talk about it? I said, instead of doing that, I sort of just like embedded it into my frustration and just made it even worse. And we talked about it, and they were great. They're like, you know what? I do that all the time. Yes, it's totally normal. I wish I wouldn't have laughed. Like, it didn't really mean anything. That's not what it meant. Blah, 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 blah. And I just said, so honestly, like, we can kind of just erase those emails. There's nothing that was said there that everything I've said before was actually constructive, and there was nothing in those emails that was constructive. So that was like non-parts work. So I got to see in the space of like 2 days, like this perfect scenario where I immediately addressed myself and my needs before engaging and communicating with the other person. The second time, I did not address my needs. And as such, things didn't go so well. Fortunately, they didn't go poorly either. Meaning I feel like they went well in the fact that I got to see myself so helpful when you get to see yourself. And lucky enough to be dealing with people that know and actually do respect me a lot. They're like, you do such a great job. Like, we want you here. Like, we want to hear what you're saying. Like, we love your feedback. And yes, we're here for the hard conversations when maybe we overreact or misunderstand each other. So I felt fortunate that it was kind of like a chance to get a clear reflection of myself without harm being done. It was more just like miscommunication and hey, let's kind of. Oh, that's what I say. What was interesting is during the call where I was talking to the two bosses, the woman did say, she said, I have an issue with delegation. It is so hard for me to delegate and allow someone else to do it. So that is something I'm really working on. And I realized, oh, that's the control issue. I'd mentioned a control issue in the email. Like that's the control issue I've been feeling is like, why won't you just let us do this? Like you won't let us just get anything done. So there was some validity to my frustration of like, hey, let us do this. Like, let us get this thing done. Anyway, there was just it was an interesting time for us all to sort of be a little more honest. And another thing I want to point out is before we had that conversation, I actually spent some time with Nelson Mandela's quote, "Peace is not the absence of conflict," and really allowed myself to sit with that the conflict is often a part of the solution, meaning the conflict leads you to the bridge, leads you to the threshold where you can get across, get through into a new space. And that's what I was trying to do. And that's actually how I started the conversation with my bosses. I said, I just want to thank you for this call. I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's really important to me to continue to learn how to have, like, to communicate well. And when I don't, to have, the uncomfortable conversations. Because it's through conflict that we can actually transform, bridge, traverse from one space to another. And peace is not the absence of conflict. So there are two examples. The first one, brilliantly done parts work, and the second one, not so brilliantly done, but in hindsight, I'm able to reflect and see the different voices that were at play. And I didn't address any one of them. I combined them and just sort of vomited them out. So, and that's not parts work. that's messy work. So I share this in the hopes that if you find yourself in a situation where you're triggered, this is what I'm going to do. And I have not read anything by Richard Schwartz. I've listened to some stuff, so I don't actually know his protocol. So I'm not saying this is his at all. I'm just saying I know that people refer to him when they talk about parts work, and I've heard him speak. What I learned from that experience is when I am triggered in a situation, I'm going to try to, if I have the luxury of time, which generally you do, you at least have a few minutes, not always. The first one I want to try to address is the one that's screaming, the one that's emotional, the one that's frantic or angry, that one. And just say, okay, what can I do for you right now? What can I do for you right now? Because that one is not going to solve the problem. But that one also will make a mess of the problem, and that one deserves to be heard. Like, it probably has not been heard, and that's why it's screaming. So I'm going to try to address the screamer first, or the upset one. But I have to say, for me, that upset one might also be silent. Like, they may be holding a grudge, or so they may not be a screamer. They also might be like non-communicative. Anyway, but the one that's like most intense. Then I'd like to go to the one that says, how can we, now that sort of the emotion has been addressed, how can we take care of this situation? Like, what needs to be done? And then, and there might be many voices from there on out. But I realized that for me, until I care for myself, I take care of that one that is most iron-fisted. It's a word that comes to mind. The one that is iron-fisted about it, whatever it is. Until I get that one to loosen its grip, it will be hard for me to resolve the issue in a healthy way. In what I should say is in a new way. It's like the one that's iron-fisted is so inflexible that it won't allow me to sort of open and be spacious and consider that there are other ways. There are new ways of addressing conflict, of transforming conflict, moving through conflict, or even being in conflict. Like even if it's a space where it's not really going to find a solution anytime soon, there are new ways, more open and spacious ways to be in conflict than the ways I currently have been. But I need to address myself and that iron-fisted one first in order to be able to make that open spaciousness so my mind can relax and actually think about what are the possibilities in this situation. Not what have I always done. What are the possibilities? So this is my sharing of my parts work. And I hope that helps you. Like I said, and I can't advocate for Richard Swartz. I don't know him, haven't read him. So this is not in any way, I've just mentioned him because he's the one that sort of coined the phrase and the way of doing it. So anyway, and I also love, and I think that's really a new gift of mine, I love that I was successful, and I loved that I learned a lesson. I got to see that I did it masterfully, and then I got to see when I didn't, why didn't I? Because unless I understand that, I can't grow, I can't learn, I can't change. And there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be situations where something triggers us, some iron fist clamps down on us, and we are unable to act or see or believe in new ways. So, all right. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Take care of yourselves. Today is Halloween. Don't know when you're listening, but today is Halloween. I love Halloween. I didn't dress up. One of these years, I'm going to dress up again. And strangely enough, on Halloween night, I'm going to go play my mom's flute at a sound bath. A friend asked me to come to his sound bath and play my mom's flute. I haven't done it for a long time, and I haven't played my mom's flute since sitting at her gravesite at her funeral. So it's been over about a month and a half since then. So this will be a time for me to remember her and connect with her. And honestly, just to remember her. A lot of remembering. So, love to you all. Bye-bye.